Okay, so we're diving into something a little different today.
Yeah.
We're looking at what's called a homeowner orientation document.
That,
It's something that is given to new homeowners in a community called Vicenza in Florida.
mhm.
And it's from Neil Communities and Castle Group. And it's basically meant to be like your welcome packet,
Wow.
your guide to understanding how things work, how the HOA functions, all that good stuff.
Yeah, it's a lot to take in when you first move into a new place, especially a community like this with an HOA. There are so many rules and regulations and things you got to know.
Yeah, exactly. So instead of letting this document just sit there gathering dust, we figured we'd do a deep dive, pull out the most important stuff, the stuff that really impacts you as a homeowner, and try to make sense of it all together.
Yeah, kind of like a cheat sheet for navigating HOA life.
Exactly. And one of the things that really stood out to me right off the bat was this whole transition of power, from the developer to the residents.
Oh, absolutely. That's a key element of HOAs. Understanding that shift is crucial for homeowners.
Yeah, because it's like initially you've got the people who built the community calling all the shots, but eventually it becomes the homeowners themselves who are in control, right?
Exactly. It's a fascinating dynamic, and it really shapes how the community evolves over time.
So let's start from the beginning. The document starts by introducing Vicenza as, this community focused on lifestyle, comfort, and connection. All the good stuff.
Right. Painting that picture of community living.
Right. And then it jumps into who's who in the HOA. We've got the board of directors and then the castle group management. What are their roles, like, at the beginning of this whole thing?
Well, they lay out their primary goal as setting the standards for the community
Yeah.
and fostering that sense of connection that they talked about.
Okay, so the board is kind of like the rule setters, especially in the early stages, while it's still under the developer's control.
Yeah, you can think of them as the stage setters and then castle group management. They're the ones who actually, handle the day-to-day stuff that keeps things running smoothly.
Okay, so one's the big picture people and one's the more operational day-to-day folks.
Exactly.
Now, I did appreciate that right away they give you all the key contact info. You've got the property manager, John Randall, his email, his phone number. Then there's the lifestyle director, Stephen Bowles, also with his contact details. And of course, they give you the physical address for the management office and even an after-hours emergency line. It's like they really want you to know how to get in touch if you need something.
Oh, absolutely. Having those contacts handy can save you a lot of hassle
Yeah.
if you've got a question or need something taken care of.
Definitely. Okay, so then they dive into what an HOA actually is, for those who might not be familiar.
Right.
And they make it clear that when you buy a property in Vicenza, you automatically become a member of the HOA. And that membership is tied to the property. So when you sell, the membership goes with it.
Right. It's not optional. It's part of the package when you buy into a community like this.
Exactly. And by buying in, you're agreeing to follow those, restrictive covenants and to pay those assessments, the HOA fees.
Right. Those are the obligations that come with the HOA membership.
So let's talk more about the board of directors, because this is where it gets interesting. Initially, it's appointed by the developer, Neil Communities. What's their focus during this early phase?
Well, what's really interesting is that the developer board is very much focused on the initial success of the community. So they really emphasize aesthetics, making the community look great to attract buyers.
Oh, that makes sense.
They want to create that curb appeal. And they'll be pretty strict about enforcing rules related to how homes look and how people maintain their landscaping.
So if you're thinking about, like, painting your house a crazy color, you might want to check in with the HOA first.
Well, absolutely. Haha. It's all about maintaining that consistent, attractive look throughout the community.
Got it. Now, during this developer control period, they only hold an annual budget meeting in November, not regular monthly or quarterly meetings like we might see later on.
Right. They're streamlining things, making decisions efficiently as they get the community up and running.
And how about the financials during this phase? If the HOA fees, the assessments they collect, aren't enough to cover the costs, what happens?
Well, the document states that the developer will actually step in and cover any shortfall.
Okay, so that's good. The homeowners are protected, at least initially.
To a certain extent, yes,
Yeah.
but it's not a complete guarantee. The document does mention that homeowners could still be subject to loans or special assessments if there's a big unexpected expense.
Right, so you're not completely off the hook financially just because the developer is initially in control.
Exactly. It's still important to understand the financial responsibilities involved.
So there's this key turning point that happens when 50% of the homes are conveyed or closed, meaning the ownership officially transfers to the buyers. And at that point, residents get to elect one member to the board. Vicenza is already past that point at 72%, so there's already a homeowner representative on the board. What difference does that make?
Well, that single representative gives homeowners a voice, even though the developer still has the majority and makes the final decisions.
Right, so it's like a foot in the door, a way to start representing the homeowner's interests early on.
Exactly. It ensures that homeowner perspectives are at least being considered.
And then the big shift happens when 95% of the homes are conveyed.
Right. That's the turnover point.
The developer really starts to hand over control to the homeowners. What does that look like in practice?
Well, at that point, the homeowners will elect their own board of directors.
Okay, so it's like a full transition to homeowner control.
Yes. And you'll probably start to see more frequent board meetings, maybe monthly, as the homeowners take a more active role in managing the community. They'll also likely form various committees to handle different aspects of the HOA.
Like what kind of committees?
Things like an architectural review committee to review proposed changes to homes and properties, a finding and hearing committee to address any rule violations, and maybe even advisory committees to gather input from homeowners on different issues.
So it becomes a lot more homeowner-driven.
Exactly. The homeowners are really taking ownership of their community.
Now, something else they mentioned, which I thought was interesting, is that a homeowner board can establish community reserves.
Right, that's really important for the long-term financial health of the community.
Yeah, why is that?
Well, think of it as a savings account for the HOA. These funds are set aside to cover big expenses down the road, like major repairs or replacements of common areas, amenities, or infrastructure.
Okay, so if the clubhouse roof needs replacing in 10 years, you've got some money set aside to handle it.
Exactly. It helps prevent homeowners from being hit with those big, unexpected special assessments when those major expenses come up.
So it's all about planning ahead, being fiscally responsible.
Precisely. And it gives the homeowners more control over their finances in the long run.
All right, let's make sure we're clear on who does what in this whole operation. We've got Neil Communities, the developer, and Castle Group, the management company. What are their specific roles?
So near communities, they're the ones who, envisioned and created Vicenza. They bought the land, developed the infrastructure, built the amenities. They got everything started.
Okay, they're the visionaries, the initial builders.
Right. And they set up the legal framework for the HOA, created the governing documents, all that.
Okay, so they lay the groundwork, and then Castle Group comes in.
Exactly. Castle Group handles the day-to-day management of the HOA.
Okay, so they're the ones dealing with the nitty-gritty of running the HOA under the direction of the board.
Right. They implement the board's decisions, whether it's the developer board or the homeowner board. They're also the main point of contact for residents, if you have questions, concerns, need help with something.
So they're like the administrators, making sure everything runs smoothly on a daily basis.
That's a good way to put it.
All right, now let's walk through what happens after you close on your new home. How do you get your HOA account set up?
So after closing, the title company sends all your paperwork to Castle Group's Warranty Deeds Department. This can take up to 30 days, so just be aware of that timeline.
Yeah, okay.
Once Castle gets your paperwork, they'll create your account and assign you an account number.
And then you'll get a welcome letter with your account number and some payment coupons.
Right. That usually comes about 2 weeks after Castle receives your documents.
Okay. And what about the community's online portal, Town Square? How do you get access to that?
Once your account is set up, you'll get an email inviting you to create an account on Town Square.
Okay, so that's where you can manage your payments and access all sorts of community information.
Exactly. And they really encourage people to use Town Square for communication with the HOA, too.
Yeah, they say it's the preferred method, right?
Right.
Now let's talk about those amenities. The document lists the hours for the pool, dog park, sports courts, clubhouse, all that good stuff.
Yeah, sounds like they've got a good range of amenities.
Yeah, they do. And if you need the full scoop on all the rules and policies, guest policies, things like that, they direct you to Town Square.
Right. Always good to know the rules. Helps keep things running smoothly for everyone.
Definitely. Now, something else important is parking and access control.
Oh, yeah. HOAs are often pretty strict about that.
They are. No overnight street parking in Vicenza. They'll tow you if you do.
Good to know.
The gates close every night from 7 p.m. to 6 a.m. And when you're entering through the main gate, residents have a designated lane on the right, and guests use the left lane with a kiosk to check in.
Okay, that makes sense.
Now, they use a system called Envera for managing guest access and gate entry. Residents get 2 transponders or fobs when they buy their home.
Okay, so that's how you get through the gate.
Yeah. If you need more, you can buy them from the management office.
Makes sense.
And there's a system called My and Vera for managing your guest list, who's allowed in and all that.
Oh, okay.
New homeowners should get a welcome email with their login details for that even before closing, which is helpful.
Yeah, that's good. You can get set up ahead of time.
Now, let's talk about maintaining your property. Each homeowner is responsible for everything within their lot lines: home, landscaping, sidewalks.
Right, that's pretty standard for HOAs.
It is. However, if you own a villa, they do provide some assistance with landscape and irrigation maintenance.
Oh, okay, so they take care of some of it for you.
They do. They'll mow the lawn, edge, fertilize, handle the basic weed control. They also do a monthly wet check of the irrigation system, making sure everything's working
Oh,
properly.
that's nice. Take some of the burden off the homeowner.
It does. However, it's not a full-service landscaping program. Homeowners are still responsible for maintaining their property to community standards.
Right, so it's a partnership.
Exactly. And if you want them to handle things like plant diseases or certain pest problems, that might be an extra cost.
Makes sense. Now, what if a homeowner wants to make changes to their property?
That's where the architectural review process, or ARC, comes in.
Right, got to get approval for any exterior changes.
Exactly. Before the homeowner board takes over, the developer acts as the ARC.
Okay,
We're looking at the aesthetics, making sure any changes fit the overall look of the community.
makes sense.
They can approve or deny requests for things like new construction, exterior modifications, even landscaping changes. And get this, even if you want to lease your home, you need ARC approval.
Wow, they're pretty thorough.
They are. And the document is very clear. Do not assume any exterior change is okay without getting formal approval.
Good advice. It's always better to be safe than sorry.
Absolutely. They also list out all the things you need to submit for an ARC application: descriptions, plans, material specifications, the whole 9 yards.
Sounds like they've got a good system in place.
They do. Now, one last thing I wanted to highlight. They provide a great list of essential contact information.
Oh, that's super helpful when you're settling in.
It is. You've got numbers for cable, internet, electricity, gas, water, all the utilities.
That's so convenient.
It is. And they also reiterate the emergency contact numbers, both for HOA issues and general emergencies.
Yeah, that's good to have handy.
Definitely. So we've covered a lot of ground here. We've looked at how the HOA is structured, how it transitions from developer control to homeowner control, what your responsibilities are as a homeowner, and where to find information and services.
Yeah, we've really unpacked this homeowner orientation document.
We have. Now, I want to leave you with a thought. Now that you have this knowledge, what aspects of community living in Vicenza are you most interested in? Are there things you want to get involved in, maybe even try to influence as the HOA transitions to homeowner control?
That's a great question. It's really about taking ownership of your community. Right.
Exactly. And it starts with understanding how things work, which is what we've tried to do here.
Absolutely.
So we encourage you to go back to the homeowner orientation document, read it carefully, and explore the Town Square portal. Click around, see what resources are available, and definitely jot down any questions that come up. The more informed you are, the better equipped you'll be to navigate life in your new community.
Couldn't agree more.
Thanks for joining us for this deep dive into Vicenza.